The wilderness is not a mistake. It is not a detour. It is not a sign that you've been forgotten. It is the forge of heaven, the sacred ground upon which God shapes his vessels of glory. It is where the chosen are made ready, not for ordinary tasks, but for divine assignments. It is where the noise of the world is silenced and the voice of the Lord becomes clear. When God called Moses, he did not immediately send him to Pharaoh. He sent him into obscurity. For 40 years, Moses walked the barren terrain of Midian, from the palace of Egypt to the dry winds of the desert, from the royal court to the sheepfold. And why? Because the man who would one day speak with fire to a king had first to be emptied of Egypt. He had to be undone before he could be remade. In the wilderness, the echo of ambition dies and the whisper of God begins. Moses learned not the art of rulership, but the discipline of stillness. And only when the fire burned in a bush that did not consume did he hear the call that would alter the course of nations. And so it is with us. We long for the promise, but God takes us through the process. We want the palace, but God walks us through the pasture. We seek the glory, but God brings us through the grind. The wilderness becomes the divine classroom. It is not punishment. It is preparation. Not abandonment, but alignment. In the wilderness, God removes what cannot remain. He strips away what the future cannot sustain. Pride must be buried, fear must be exposed, flesh must be crucified. Look at Joseph. The dream was from heaven, but the journey was through pits and prisons. Why? Because the dreamer had to be transformed before the dream could come to pass. God showed him the end at the beginning, but the in-between was the wilderness of waiting. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, forgotten in a dungeon. Yet in every chapter, God was not distant. He was near. Not idle, but active. Joseph was not being sidelined. He was being sanctified. In the prison, he learned humility. In the silence, he learned discernment. In the waiting, he learned wisdom. And when the hour came to stand before Pharaoh, Joseph was no longer just a dreamer. He had become an interpreter of destiny. So it is for those who are called. You may feel hidden, forgotten, buried, but seeds are buried before they grow. Hiddenness is not death, it is preparation, and preparation is not passive, it is holy. In the wilderness, God reveals what your calling will require. He trains your hands for war, your heart for battle, your spirit for obedience. The same wilderness that humbles you is the one that will later confirm you. You are learning not just how to move, but how to listen. Not just how to act, but how to abide. Even David, anointed yet sent back to the sheep, chosen yet chaste. He played the harp in shadows before he ruled from the throne. He learned to fight lions and bears before he faced Goliath. What looked like delay was divine development. God was preparing him in the fields so he could stand in the palace without falling. The wilderness taught him to trust not in weapons, not in numbers, not in titles, but in the living God. When his own men spoke of stoning him, David encouraged himself in the Lord. That kind of strength is not learned in a moment. It is forged in seasons. And now, if you find yourself in the wilderness, know this. God is working deeper than you know. He is doing more than you see. The silence does not mean absence. It means he is doing something inside of you before he does something through you. The wilderness may feel like loss, but it is often the very proof of calling. You are being prepared, not for something small, nothing ordinary, but for something ordinary, but for something eternal, something sacred, something that requires the shaping only the wilderness can give. What looks like delay is often the disguise of divine design. If God gave it to you too soon, it would crush you. So he waits. He hides you. He stretches time like a canvas, painting a masterpiece behind the veil. Pain is not wasted in the hands of God. In the kingdom, there is no such thing as meaningless suffering. Every tear, every wound, every broken place becomes the raw material of destiny. The pain you walk through becomes the preparation for the promise you will carry. What the enemy meant to destroy you, God transforms into the very thing that refines you. He does not remove the pain without purpose. He redeems it. He allows you to be pressed, not to crush you, but to draw out what could not be revealed any other way. Joseph felt the pain of betrayal, the sting of rejection from his own brothers. He was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned, and forgotten. Each chapter could have been the end of his story, but in God's design, they were tools of transformation. The pain he endured became the soil in which his character was grown. Without the pit, he would never have reached the palace. Without the prison, he would never have stood before Pharaoh. And when his brothers came, trembling and afraid, Joseph did not speak with bitterness. He spoke with vision. He said, "What you meant for evil, God meant for good." That is the revelation of those who have walked through pain with God. They see that the pain was never the enemy. It was the path. David knew the pain of betrayal, of abandonment, of fear, anointed as king, yet running from caves, living as a fugitive, hunted like a criminal. A man after God's own heart cried out in Psalms with tears and groanings. He was not spared from sorrow. He was shaped by it. In the cave, he learned to lead. In the wilderness, he learned to wait. In the betrayal, he learned to forgive. These were not just moments of survival. They were moments of sanctification. The crown on his head came only after the cross of suffering in his soul. There is a mystery in the way God uses pain. The very thing we pray to be taken away becomes the instrument he uses to deepen us. Suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. But the process is not painless. It cuts, it exposes, it humbles, and yet it heals, because when we are stripped of all else, we are left with the one thing that remains unshaken, his presence. In the fire, we learn that he is enough. In the storm, we learn his voice. In the silence, we learn his faithfulness. Even Jesus, the Son of the living God, walked the path of pain. He was despised and rejected, a man of sorrows acquainted with grief. In Gethsemane, he sweat drops of blood. On the cross, he bore the weight of sin, not only physical agony, but spiritual separation. Yet the pain was not purposeless. Through it, salvation came. Through his wounds, we are healed. The greatest purpose the world has ever known was birthed through the deepest pain. This is the pattern of heaven. The crown comes after the cross. Glory comes after the grave. Your pain is not in vain. It is preparing you for what God is preparing for you. It is training your spirit, shaping your heart, enlarging your capacity. Scars you carry are not signs of weakness, but of survival, of perseverance, of divine encounter. They mark you as one who has been through the fire and come out refined. God never wastes a wound. He never overlooks a broken heart. He collects every tear, stores them in his bottle, records them in his book. Because in the economy of heaven, pain is sacred. What you learn in pain cannot be learned in comfort. Depth of compassion, the strength of endurance, the reality of empathy, all these are forged in the place of suffering. God uses your pain to birth ministry. He uses your weakness to reveal his strength. What you walk through becomes the testimony that others will cling to in their own midnight hour. Your pain becomes a key, unlocking the prison doors of others who thought they were alone in their suffering. There is power in pain surrendered to God. There is beauty that rises from ashes. There is oil that flows only from the crushed olive. The process is costly, but the result is eternal. Heaven writes stories in scars, songs in sighs, revelations in the ruins. The thorn remains, but so does the grace. The darkness descends, but so does the glory. What feels like abandonment is often appointment. When God prepares someone for something sacred, he does not allow them to be built on shallow ground. He does not allow them to be shaped by the applause of men or the fleeting affirmation of the crowd. Instead, he sets them apart. He takes them through the hidden places, the unseen corridors of preparation, where they are emptied of self so they can be filled with him. When you feel most forgotten, you may be nearest to the moment of divine positioning. David was anointed in front of his brothers, yet went back to the fields. He was called a king, but still cared for sheep. He was chosen by heaven, but chased by Saul. There was oil on his head, but dust on his feet. Every trial he endured, every moment of hiding, every betrayal, every disappointment was not a detour from his calling. It was the path to it. God was not just preparing the throne for David. He was preparing David for the throne. Without the process, the promise would have crushed him. Without the wilderness, the crown would have been too heavy. He was not being punished. He was being positioned. So many cry out for the mountain, but God leads them into the valley. So many ask for the fire of heaven, but God first takes them through the fire of refinement. The places of obscurity, of silence, of delay are not evidence of disqualification. They are evidence of consecration. God is setting you apart, not setting you aside. He is not holding you back. He is holding you steady. There are depths that cannot be reached in the spotlight. There are truths that cannot be learned when surrounded by comfort. He brings you low to build you strong. He hides you now so he can reveal you in his time, and when he does, you will not be shaken, for your foundation will not be in what people think. It will be in what God has spoken. Look at Esther, a Jewish girl hidden in a Persian palace, her identity veiled, her people endangered. She was not where she was by accident. She had been divinely positioned. She was not raised by royalty, but she was raised by God. At the right time, the moment of crisis, the hour of decision, she stood where no one else could stand. For such a time as this, she was brought to the kingdom. That is the power of divine positioning. It places you exactly where you need to be when everything depends on obedience. God trains his vessels in the fields before he places them in the fire. He equips them in the dark before he shines the light. Consider Moses again. For 40 years he lived as a prince, and for 40 years he wandered as a shepherd. Well, not wasted time. He learned not only how to lead, but how to listen. Not only how to speak, but when to be silent. He learned that true leadership does not begin with power. It begins with surrender. And only then was he ready to stand before Pharaoh, not as a man full of himself, but as a man emptied of all but God. Preparation is rarely about doing more. It is about becoming more. God is not after performance. He is after alignment. He is not building you into a celebrity. He is forming you into a servant. In a world that runs on visibility, heaven runs on character. Your platform will never be greater than the foundation that upholds it. The deeper the calling, the deeper the preparation must go. What he's preparing you for is not something small, because the shaping has not been small. The struggle, the pressing, the crushing, it all testifies to the magnitude of what is coming. Jesus himself submitted to preparation. For 30 years, he walked among men, unrecognized by most. He learned obedience through what he suffered. He waited on the timing of the Father. He did not run ahead, though he carried all authority. He was content to be hidden until the hour came. And when it came, he stepped forward with power, but also with humility. His miracles were birthed from intimacy. His authority flowed from submission. His strength was born from surrender. The same pattern is true for those he calls. He does not raise up those who are self-made. He raises those who have been undone and rebuilt in his image. The world may overlook you. People may forget you. Shops may stay closed. But if God is preparing you, nothing can stop what he has ordained. When he opens the door, it will be a door no man can shut. When he raises you up, no one will be able to take the credit. The very seasons that seem to disqualify you will become the proof that you were chosen. He is not just writing your story. He is writing his story. He is writing his story through your life. And every chapter matters. What feels like obscurity is often the very shield of God protecting you from premature exposure. If you rise too soon, the weight will break you. But if you let him do the work in you when the time comes, you will not rise in your own strength. You will rise in his. And you will rise ready. Ready not only to walk in the calling, but to carry the weight of it. To serve without needing applause. To lead without needing control. To give without needing recognition. The preparation does not always make sense while you're in it. But later, you will look back and see that every piece fit together. Every delay had a reason. Every closed door had a purpose. Every trial carried a truth. The Lord wastes nothing. He is not just preparing a future for you. He is preparing you for the future. There is a moment in the life of every person called by God when everything seems to go silent. The heavens no longer thunder. The dreams no longer speak. The path no longer glows. It feels as though what once burned bright has dimmed to embers. The passion that once moved you now stands still, and the vision you once clung to is wrapped in fog. But it is in this very silence, this divine stillness, that God begins to do his deepest work. When the noise is gone, the distractions stripped away, the voice of God no longer shouts, it whispers, because what he is doing in you new is not for the crowd. It is for the core. This is the hidden season, the cave, the place where callings are not only confirmed, they are forged. Treason. Many flee this season trying to force their way back into the light, back into movement, back into visibility. But those who understand the ways of God learn to remain. They do not run from the silence. They sit in it. They do not panic in the stillness. They wait within it, because they know that what is growing now cannot be seen with the eyes of flesh. The roots are reaching deep. The soul is being stretched. The foundation is being secured so that the structure can rise in its time and not collapse under the weight of what it is destined to hold. Elijah knew the fire. He knew the wind. He knew the earthquake. He stood in the center of divine power and confronted kings, called down fire, shut the heavens with a word. And yet, after it all, he was brought to a cave, not to be punished, but to be prepared again. And it was there in that cave that he heard something he had never heard before. Not the thunder, not the flame, but the still small voice. Because there comes a time when the preparation is not about strength, but about surrender. Not about what you can say, but how well you can listen. Not about being bold in public, but being broken in private. In this hidden place, your identity is separated from your activity. You are no longer defined by what you do, but by who you are becoming. The masks are removed, the titles fall away, and the only question that matters is this: are you willing to become the vessel, even if no one sees the oil? Are you willing to be faithful when no one claps, to be obedient when no one watches, to be holy when no one notices? Because it is in that place, that secret place, that the Lord looks not at the performance, but at the posture. God often removes the crutches we didn't know we were leaning on. He removes the applause, the affirmation, the opportunities, not because he wants to harm us, but because he wants to free us. We think we need them. We think without them we will fall. But he knows they are distractions. He knows they are weights. So he allows the silence not to confuse you, but to clarify you, to strip you of everything you think you need until all you have left is him. And that is the moment of true transformation. That is when calling becomes communion, when ministry becomes intimacy, when destiny becomes dependence. How? Jesus himself, after his baptism and before his ministry, was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, not by Satan, but by the Spirit. The wilderness was not a punishment, it was a preparation. For 40 days he fasted, prayed, resisted, endured, and when he emerged, he was not weaker. He was ready. He was ready. Heaven opened not after the wilderness, but because of what happened in it. Power does not come without pressing. Authority does not come without testing. And intimacy does not come without silence. What you perceive as delay is a divine invitation to come deeper. To know God not for what he does through you, but for who he is to you. To let go of the timeline and cling to the eternal. To stop measuring fruit and start deepening roots. To let your hidden life with God become the foundation that no storm can shake, no rejection can wound, no loss can fracture. This is the school of the Spirit. This is where prophets are born, where shepherds are shaped, where kings are molded. Not in the noise of the crowd, but in the quiet of the cave. Not on the platform, but in the posture. Not in the outward triumph, but in the inward surrender. The hidden place is holy ground. The silence is sacred. And those who yield to it will find that when the season shifts and the doors open, they will not step forward in their own name, but in the authority of the one who formed them in secret.